All right, welcome DoorGrow hackers to the DoorGrow show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you are interested in growing your business and life, and you are open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a DoorGrow hacker. DoorGrow hackers love the opportunities, the daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management businesses and their owners. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property managers win. I'm your host, property management growth hacker, Jason Hull, the founder of Open Potion, Gather Kudos, Thunder Local, and of course, DoorGrow. Now let's get into the show. So DoorGrow hackers, today I have hanging out with me a best-selling author, Bryan Chavis, and he is the founder of the Landlord Property Management Academy. He's an author and creator of one of the top property management designations certifications online. He runs one of the top blogs for real estate professionals at landlordacademy.com and is a property management coach for Keller Williams, MAPS, named one of the top 40 up-and-coming entrepreneurs under the age of 40 by Gulf Coast Business Review. He travels the country coaching real estate professionals and consults for some of the largest housing authorities in the nation. And he lives in Tampa, Florida with his wife and daughter. So Bryan, welcome to the DoorGrow show.
Awesome, man. It's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. So, Bryan, you have a really interesting story. You weren't just like born a best-selling author who is crushing it in real estate. And so I would love, so you've got a couple of books out. You're a Simon Schuster best-selling author. You've got Buy It, Rent It, Profit, Make Money as a Landlord in Any Real Estate Market. So I'd love to hear about that in a bit. And then you've got the Landlord Entrepreneur, Double Your Profits with Real Estate Property Management. So Bryan, start with the beginning. When did you first catch the real estate bug? And maybe you could share kind of your background and like how you kind of your journey.
Yeah,
I love these kind of stories.
Yeah, well, it's, very humble beginnings. I started in the multifamily industry working for apartment buildings. And I learned about the property management industry from, what I consider some of the leading experts in the world, the multifamily industry, a National Association of, or what are they called? National Apartment Association. I received all my designations, became an instructor there. So I owe a lot to them in my early development. And then, of course, I moved on, when I seen where I considered the wealth was, I decided to, one day wanted to own and operate my own apartment buildings. I mean, really, that's why I'm doing all this. The books, the consulting, it means a lot to me to be able to give back. But, it was always a ways or means to owning and operating my own apartment buildings or participating in partnerships where I had ownership interests and perhaps using my property management knowledge to leverage percentage of ownership in larger multifamily institutional grade assets. So I was able to do that with very little money out of my own pocket. I only have a high school diploma. If there's, like I said, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Very humble beginnings. So, you can't, I don't think you can get any humbler than, where I started. That's kind of the Reader's Digest version of what I've been able to accomplish.
And where did you get started? Where are you from originally?
I originally I'm from Lakeland, Florida. I grew up in Lakeland, Florida. Got started in the multifamily industry in the Tampa Bay area. And that's kind of how I got started at a very young age, leasing apartments, and then worked my way up into management. And then eventually that's when I decided to become an entrepreneur and step out and then raise money under a private placement to go out and find my own apartment buildings. And, through a series of events, I wrote this manual, and I was selling it out of the trunk of my car. That manual is now like the distant relative to Buy It, Rent It, Profit. But that's kind of how becoming a speaker came along, and then developing the school, and then the school kind of morphed in from a school into a consulting firm to where we consult for some of the top housing authorities nationwide, and which led me to do coaching and consulting for companies such as Keller Williams. In fact, that the the partner in this apartment building that I'm at today, my partner is Mark Willis, the former CEO of Keller Williams. So it's led me to have influence with you know, some of the top minds in real estate. I mean, when you consider Mark Willis as my partner, he would be considered Forbes magazine, you know, top CEOs. Is credited with taking Keller Williams to the largest real estate company in the world. To come from a high school diploma, you know, basically, really, you know, the last job I ever had was a management position in, you know, in an apartment community. You know, to come from those humble beginnings, to have a partner like Mark Willis, it just goes to show you that anything is possible.
So let's go back to that, because I like the audience that we're talking to, they're entrepreneurs. You and I are entrepreneurs. And so when did you first kind of get that inkling where you were working, you had a job, you were working for somebody, and then you decided, what was that transition like? What sparked your interest, or changed your mindset to think, hey, I could do this. I could be an entrepreneur. I don't need to be working for somebody.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, we all know that when you're an entrepreneur, you have it from the very beginning. It's something that that's in your DNA. It's in your makeup. You know, when I was in high school, I was selling bubble gum and buying bubble gum and reselling it during recess. You know, I was always hustling. You know, I always had a grind or something. You know, I was mowing lawns, and you name it, there was always creative things I was doing. So that entrepreneurial bug was always in me. And I was always a poor student, really poor student. You know, I was special education. You know, they make those jokes about riding the short bus to school. You know, I graduated with a special diploma, you know, with a severe learning disability. So school was never really a great option for me. So I knew I had to do something. I back in high school, I leaned on athletics and was able to have a basketball scholarship, and basketball helped me travel the world. And I was introduced to, you know, a lot of other entrepreneurs. And, you know, I always wanted to sit around with the owners of teams and just talk with other sporting agents. And, you know, I was always fascinated with business. And then when that ended in my early 20s, you know, I got a job leasing apartments. And, you know, that bug was always in me. I was always seeing, you know, I worked in property management, which was really important. I worked in property management, but I always wanted to own the apartment building. What did it take? How did these people own and operate? You know, one of the owners that I worked for had over 1,000 units. I mean, this guy was killing it. Wow. You know, but he was humble. I mean, he would come in on his own plane, you know, and he would come in jeans and a pair of Chuck Taylors. And I would ask him, and he said, man, I started from humble beginnings. I used to be a roofer, Bryan, you know, and then he would tell me his story. And I'm just like, wow, how do I get to that point? And I can remember, if you have a second for a story, I remember the first time I stepped out. I remember selling this manual out of my car. Okay, so I knew I had no money, so I'm trying to figure out a way.
So you wrote out a manual because you were studying this. Like you had basically some mentors. You had people you could watch. You were working the job, but you weren't just working a job to get paid. You were working the job to figure out, how does this work?
Yes.
And then you actually started writing it down.
Yeah.
And you made your own manual.
So each of these companies that I worked for all had employee manuals on how to operate and run the property. So everyone was, you know, that's how the key to any business is the franchise mindset, which means if you're going to duplicate something, so if you're going to duplicate DoorGrow, the key is that you cannot duplicate something nationwide. If you're going to open a DoorGrow in every city throughout the country, you first have to have a model. That model has to be tested, stress tested. Then when you create that model, then you have to have the ability to be able to show someone else how to do it. You cannot do that without training manuals. You cannot do that without having these procedures manuals. These procedures manuals identify the work that needs to be done and then it tells the user how to go about performing that work. That's what creates consistency. That consistency creates profitability. So I noticed these trends in the companies that I work for. So I would just take and create my own procedure manuals and help owners of real estate become successful property managers themselves. So, I sold this manual out the trunk of the car. So you have all these real estate investors who are buying rental property who are very unsuccessful at managing their tenants. So I wrote a manual for them. And then I went from these real estate investment clubs all around Florida, and I would just travel around and sell this manual out of the trunk of my car to these real estate investment club meetings, these groups. And I remember, I just remember being humbled, then figured out that I had to come up with this kind of hustle to sell these manuals, because I went to speak to another investor, a mentor. Really wasn't a mentor. It was a guy that was selling a small apartment building. And I went to him and I said, well, what would it take for me to buy this? And he said, $1 million. And I was $999,000 short. So I had to come up with a hustle. So that's how I started selling these manuals. And then the manuals turned into the academy, and then so on and so forth. And then as I started to build a brand, people started coming to me and saying, hey, look, what would it take for me to have you on my team? And what would it take for you to come out and manage my property? Instead of just managing people's property, I said, well, I would like a percentage of ownership. I don't want to just help you manage your apartment building. I'll take a percentage of ownership, cut you a deal on the management, but I want whatever percentage, was worked out, and whatever deal structure that I worked out with these individuals, to have a percentage of actual ownership in the multifamily buildings that I actually would manage. So, that's kind of how it all started, with the idea of ownership and using the leverage of property management.
So you kind of breezed over this, but I want to point this out because this is really brilliant. One of your secrets to your success, then, without a doubt, was the fact that you weren't just absorbing and learning information, but you were teaching it. And teaching is the best way to learn. I mean, yes. there's the level where we read something and we think we know it enough to maybe take action on it. But when we actually go to try and teach it to somebody else, that's a whole nother level of knowledge and absorption that has to be achieved in order to have the content within you to be able to share it with other people.
Absolutely.
And so not only did you write the manual, but you then started teaching this, and I'm sure people started asking you questions about it. So you had to find answers. You were teaching this, and one of the best ways to learn anything is to teach it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and doing it. And then also,
yes.
You got to remember, so I will be teaching it. And like right now, we're having this conversation and possibly maybe teaching someone. But literally, ask me where I am right now. I'm at one of my properties. I'm doing it. So teaching and doing is the key. It has been the key for me, is that, I also, I practice what I preach. I have people come here and visit this property every day, and they quote, and I'm talking. They're like, yeah, that's actually in your book. And they're kind of surprised. I can see they're surprised that I actually live what it is that I wrote in that book. And, like I said, I'm sitting here at in the Airbnb at one of my properties right now. Where it's a testament to, actually living and doing and teaching.
I get it. So that is fantastic. All right. So how did that transition into becoming books? And Simon Schuster and all of this happening?
That's another interesting story. So one of the people that I was teaching, I've had the privilege of teaching a lot of celebrities and athletes with my background. From Ray Lewis, who I grew up with, to Tracy McGrady, who I grew up with. Gary Sheffield was a guy that I was talking to, and I was helping Gary Sheffield out with some of his real estate commercial assets, and he came to listen to me give a lecture and train. So I kind of we spent a couple of days, as you well know, at the time he was with the Yankees, and they spring trained in Tampa. So we were driving around, he was looking at apartments, and A-Rod was buying up a bunch of apartment buildings, and so Gary was looking to do the same thing. So I was kind of riding around with him during spring training and showing him. And one day he was writing a book called Inside Power by Gary Sheffield. And his publisher, Simon Schuster, called me to do an interview about him for his book. No, I'm sorry, his agent. And the agent, Vigliano Associates out of New York, reached out to me, and we started talking to him. And then they asked me, well, what do you do? And, you know, do you have a book for all this knowledge that you have? And I said, yeah, I actually got a manual. And they were like, well, you know, send me that manual. And I was like, okay, I was like, well, why? He was like, well, because I think we could, you know, help you shop it around and possibly get a book deal. And so I sent them the manual, of course, right away, excited. Never heard anything. Like 3 or 4 months went by. And then I had another friend at the time, was a prize fighter, Winky Wright, a boxer. And Winky was fighting, and he was fighting Tito Trinidad in Vegas at the time. So I flew out there and stayed a couple of weeks in Vegas hanging out. And then after his fight, I get a call early in the morning. I'll never forget. I was I think it was at Caesar's Palace. I was at the pool, and I was chilling out at Caesar's Palace. I get a call early in the morning. And it's this guy, Vigliano Associates, David Vigliano from Vigliano Associates. And he's like, hey, look, just read your manual. All our people love it. We think we can get you a book deal. When can you get to New York? I was like, when can I get to New York? I was like, when do you want me? He's like, I can send you out on a red eye tomorrow. And so I go from from Vegas to New York. And long story short, they shopped me around, and Simon Schuster met with several people during that stay in New York. I think it was only out there for 2 days. Met with several publishers, and Simon Schuster was like, listen, you know, I know you met with other people, but we plan on outbidding them all, and we like your book, and we like the manual, we like the way this thing is going, and we want to be a part of it. So nice. I ended up signing with Simon Schuster. And fantastic. That's how I kind of got started.
So so you published that first book. And then,
yep. and it absolutely does nothing, by the way. So I sell, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 copies. I bought one, my mom bought one, and maybe some other family members. So it kind of really didn't really do anything in 2000. Now you got to remember, man, everything was buying and selling. It was 2007, 8, 9. Everything was crazy. And then in 9, the bottom fell out. And then years later, it just started picking up traction, and we're selling over 150,000 copies a week. And things really started to take off, and really became successful. That's when the book started to become a bestseller. And it's funny. I was watching another guy, or someone sent me. The book is being mentioned by people all the time. There's another young kid in LA that's doing YouTube videos on real estate, and someone asked him, hey, how did you get started in real estate investing? He's like, oh, I bought this book way back when. Nice. Buy it, rent, profit. I suggest you get it. So people are, it's something that it's really flattering to know that book has a lot of, influence with a lot of individuals, and is helping a lot of individuals start their careers in real estate. Yeah. Including me. Yeah,
absolutely. So the focus of explain the focus of that first book then.
It's really about the fundamentals. It's no BS, Jason. That was one thing that I do. Again, I'm doing it. Mm-hmm. I'm literally here today doing it, and it's just no BS. It's the fundamental. Again, when I was taught, I can only do or teach what it is I was given. So when I wrote the manual, I told you I wrote the manual based on principles that I was taught, mm-hmm. and I was taught that a manual should show you how to go about performing the work.
Right.
And detailed as possible. And so when I wrote the book, it's a lot about knowledge and a lot about what I do and how I do it, but it's really a detailed manual on how you should go about, operating and running properties, purchasing properties, and operating them day to day at the operational level, which we do as managers.
So tell us about the second book, The Landlord Entrepreneur.
It's a follow-up to kind of, because a lot of people said, I wish he would go in more detail here, or wish he would go into more detail, how you always get mm-hmm. that with the books, and you can't put everything in one book. So it's a prelude and a follow-up to Buy It, Rent, and Profit. They should, in my opinion, I wrote them to go together.
So people should get the first one, read that.
Absolutely.
Move on to the second one. It goes deeper.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it goes.
All right, cool. So tell everybody. So you mentioned that you're at a property now. So what are you keeping busy with these days?
This, buying and operating real estate. You know, we have a lovely 22 unit apartment building here in the heart of downtown St. Petersburg. You know, I don't know if you can see.
And it's beautiful there in Florida today, just like here in sunny California.
It is beautiful here in Florida. We're right in the heart of downtown. We got every day there's something going on in St. Pete. I think today is the International French Fry, it's whatever. But every day there's something going on, man. Yeah, so I'm operating and, you know, I'm buying it, renting it, and profiting. You know, at the end of the day, man, but, you know, practicing what I preach.
So let's shift the focus, and I love all this. So let's help out some property management business owners. There's a lot of people that have these small, struggling property management companies, and I think maybe it's not surprising, but very few of them seem to have their own investment properties. They're just not in that game yet. So what advice would you give to these property management business owners, and how can they transition, or what mindset do they need to have to transition into being an owner and bringing in more money?
Well, let's talk about 5 key principles. Okay. The 5, if I'm writing something down, if I have to give somebody something, it's always these 5 principles. It's you got to master these 5 phases. The first phase is the acquisition phase. The second phase is the implementation. Third, stabilization. Fourth, growth. Fifth, the exit strategy. If you do not understand those 5 phases, nor can navigate those 5 phases, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to manage and get to a level like I'm at with taking your property management business to heights that, you know, really have no ceiling on them. Because you really have to understand how to think like an investor. You know, the problem is that most of our property managers, they operate like a steward. You want to operate as if, and understand from an owner's perspective. At the end of the day, if I would never allow someone to manage my properties that really didn't understand investing in real estate themselves. I just personally would not. I don't care how successful you are as a property manager. My first question out of my mouth is, how many units do you own and operate? And if you say, you know, none, you're just you're I don't want to say just a property manager, because that has a negative, but I really want to see that you own and operate some of your own properties, because then you really understand. And if you can't, because not all of us can, then I need to teach you how to sit down and articulate. How, you know, for me, people say, well, how do you attract investors and clients? It's because I know those 5 phases and I can navigate those 5 phases. You can drop me off anywhere in this country, any neighborhood, because you can watch YouTube videos of me doing it. Any neighborhood. Some of the worst I have with my YouTube videos, and I turn these properties around within 60 to 90 days. You know, and again, I have documentation of YouTube videos of me doing this, and it's because I understand how to navigate these 5 phases. And when I have that knowledge, that fundamental knowledge, getting business and achieving whatever success or amount of doors, for me, it's academic. It's second nature. It's going to happen. But the first thing that we need to teach our viewers is to really understand this industry, and not just, you know, what you're teaching them, which is awesome and great, all the marketing and all, but you fundamentally have to have the knowledge and understand how to evaluate investment properties, how to manage them. Again, the acquisition, the implementation, the stabilization, the growth, and the exit strategy. You really have to understand those 5 phases and know how to navigate them. There are some who understand the acquisition phase, the sales agents of these commercial properties. They can tell you everything they need to know about the acquisition phase, cap rates, internal rates of returns. You know, they know how to everything they need to understand about how to find value in these assets and sell them. Then you have individuals who understand the implementation phase, which are the implementing of systems, and knowing, like our property managers. They know everything they need to know how to operate. You want to know how to deliver a 3-day notice, kick someone out who hasn't paid rent, whatever. These individuals, they know it. But if you ask them about sales, they'll look at you crazy. If you ask them to evaluate an investment property to determine caps and internal rates of return, they couldn't tell you. If you ask some of the salespeople who know all about cap rates, what it takes to manage a property day to day, they'd look at you crazy. So there are individuals who know certain aspects of this industry and they know it very well, but they very few know how to navigate all 5 phases. So if there's anything that I've done is I know I've mastered all 5 phases. And that's why book deals and projects and partners such as Mark Willis, that's why I attract this to my inner circle, is because really it boils down to having the knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom how to navigate this industry. Again, all 5 of them.
And that's why you're on the DoorGrow show.
And that's why I'm on the DoorGrow show, brother.
So Bryan, take us through these 5 like really quickly. So explain acquisition to those that are like, what's acquisition?
Real simple.
Like, how would you define that?
It's real simple. As if we're on an elevator, acquisition is understanding how to evaluate a property from an income approach. Okay, cash on a cash basis, how to evaluate from an income approach. Implementation, those are the systems. When I bought this property October 31st with our investment group, I had to show up on Monday and operate this property. What systems am I using? How am I going to operate? You know what? There's 2 types of systems: soft systems and hard systems. You know, the operating and the technology. How am I going to set this whole thing up to operate? You know, from day one, because now I on Monday I'm an owner. You know, I got to collect rent. I got to handle, how did all this happen? How do we handle this? So the implementation of the systems, both hard systems, technology, and soft systems, the day-to-day systems that we use to operate the property from the operational level. That's the implementation. Once you've established your systems, then you can focus on stabilization. And what is stabilization? That's maximizing income and minimizing expenses. That has to do with understanding, from an operational level, maintaining maintenance. That's eliminating delinquencies. That's, all the things that happen day to day. That's stabilization. And then once you stabilize the property, then you can focus on growth. That's growing the asset's value. Once I grow the asset's value, then you can think about exit strategy. What is our exit strategy for this property? Do we want to take 22 units and turn it into 40? Pull the equity out of this, maybe buy another one across the street, buy the one on the corner. I mean, what is our exit strategy for this? And that's how you determine an exit strategy. So, but they all go hand in hand. I mean, you can't take exit strategy and get to acquisition. You have to understand the acquisition. You have to understand the implementation, the stabilization, the ability to grow the asset. And then you have to have always the end in mind with any business. What is our end goal? So all those things have to work together, and that's why I stress that you have to know the 5 phases.
So Bryan, this is really cool. So, and when you said something that stood out to me, you said, be an owner, not a steward.
Yes.
I love that. So think like an owner rather than just being a steward. And just that mindset shift, if they start thinking, how can I be an owner? What do I need to know to be an owner? All right. So if they want to learn more about these 5 stages and learn from Bryan and learn his methods, what would you say? Where should they start?
They can start at DoorGrow. Start we start right here at DoorGrow. But hopefully we can work together and bring some things to your viewers with the Academy and DoorGrow. But we'd love to talk about, I say we'd love to collaborate with DoorGrow and be able to offer some of the coaching, consulting with you. And of course, they can always visit our YouTube pages. Every week I'm here, Jason, and I shoot YouTube videos from the property. And I'm showing people, I'm peeling back the layers of these onions, and it's transparency at its finest. You want to understand how to operate, you can literally log in every day and see me at this property. And there's always a new topic to talk about. And, so they can log in and catch us on Facebook, our YouTube channel, Landlord Academy. Go to landlordacademy.com. And then I'm sure, within a couple of weeks, me and you will have something together to where we're able to get them and point them from DoorGrow.
Awesome. So you are showing like real and raw tactical and strategic, methods for actually making this stuff happen.
Absolutely.
You're not just some guy that's teaching theory from a stage that wrote some book. Like you're in the trenches, and you show video completely transparently showing what's going on with the property and what you're doing. And so love it. That's awesome. Well, Bryan, it's been really cool having you on the show. It's been great getting to know you and get familiar with you and connect with you. So everybody make sure you check out Bryan at landlordacademy.com.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Okay, cool. And what's your best advice that you would give to struggling entrepreneurs out there? Any final words?
Yeah, for me, if you're struggling, you iron sharpens iron. And a little bit about my personal story. I've had to even restart and reboot after having a brain tumor. So, and losing pretty much everything and having to reboot. So there's not.
You got to share that story now that you dropped that bomb. So, like, explain a little bit about that before we let you go.
Yeah, so in between this book and the book deal and everything going, things are going well. Book deal is out, becoming a bestseller. Pretty much lose everything. I have a brain tumor in 2012, and lived for 2 years with this brain tumor. And in 2014, they pulled it out of my head, but then I lost my speech and all my motor skills on my left side.
Wow.
You can go to Facebook because I videotaped, and there's pictures of me being in the operating room because I had to be awake when they removed the tumor from my brain.
Right.
And, so I never did a GoFundMe page or anything like that. It was. I as an entrepreneur, I made the mistake of not investing in myself, and I did not have any medical insurance, so I had to fund a lot of this myself. And so I pretty much, lost everything and had to start over from scratch. But my point to this is that being an entrepreneur is I've written some books, and I have a lot of knowledge. I always joke that I've probably forgotten more than most people know in this industry, right. But but it's I think there's more to what I say or my story than just understanding that, the property management aspect, but there's more to the entrepreneurial, the spiritual side of this, and understanding how to bounce back. After meeting, I just had one of my friends come in here and visit the property, doing on-site coaching. He was telling me, yeah, my uncle had a brain tumor. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. It's like, these things, it's to come back and to bounce back from these things. It's tough. So how do you handle that as an entrepreneur? You have to keep moving forward, and you have to have a strong resiliency and a strong faith in what it is you do. You have to have passion behind what it is you're doing, and really feel like at the end of the day, you're making a difference in the education, the training part of what you're doing. I mean, it's making a difference in people's lives. And if you're really not making a difference in people's lives, then really, what are you doing? And that's really what keeps us moving forward. And for me as an entrepreneur, find something that keeps you moving forward. Find something to where you're providing a service that is beneficial and helpful to others, and learn, and when you find that passion, you're able to sustain, hardships, and because there are going to be hardships, hopefully, not as drastic as a brain tumor, but you're going to have setbacks. These setbacks, they're key to defining you and helping you grow as an entrepreneur. So I would say, don't look at these setbacks. I don't care if it's your past. I don't care if you're battling an addiction, you're battling bankruptcy, you're battling, I don't care what it is you're battling. You can't look at these setbacks that you have. They are setbacks, but I look at them as setups. They're setups to take me to a next level. If it weren't for this brain tumor, I wouldn't have the amount of knowledge, wisdom, and spirituality that I have. So these setbacks are really not setbacks. I think they're really setups, and they're really there to take you to the next level. And I think if most of our viewers can understand, when they have these hardships and they're going through the struggles and they're not able to make their bills, not able to make the electric bill, they're figuring out, do they have to turn this service off or discontinue this service? It's a grind. Grow through it, but don't give up. Grow through it. These are huge opportunities. They don't look like opportunities right now, but trust me, these are opportunities to help you grow as an entrepreneur and to help you develop the character you need to build the business and the life that you're looking to have.
Yeah, if anybody can find opportunity in problems, it's entrepreneurs.
Amen.
That's what we do. So I love it. Setbacks are actually set-ups. So going through this, having a brain tumor, and this, initially I'm sure felt like a setback. What do you feel like you came out of that with that you didn't have before? What did you gain from that?
I think,
and that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. It's everything. It's the fundamental. It's the foundation of who I am today. Bryan died on that operating table. The old Bryan died on that operating table, and then a new Bryan came. And then that new Bryan didn't just happen overnight. I mean, it was a series of, years of also trying to really find my way and starting back over from scratch. But, you know, really I learned about faith. I learned about the ability to maybe our microwave. We're getting some stuff delivered, but I find a lot about myself, Jason. I find a lot about, you know, again, you know, being able to go to the worst places. I mean, there's no worse place than being on the operating table with someone removing a tumor from your brain and being awake. I didn't even have the benefit of being asleep. They're literally paralyzing me while I'm awake. So I, you know, just it's the worst place that I've ever gone through, or worst feeling. And then having those seizures and all the stuff that I went through for years before. I mean, I would have seizures before I even went in and spoke. It gave lectures in the hotel room. Then I would have to go and give an 8-hour lecture right after having a seizure. So, I mean, there's these tremendous lows. I wasn't in this. And here's another thing. I wasn't in this low, Jason, for a day. This wasn't an inconvenience for a month. This wasn't a small setback for even 2 or 3 months. You're talking about a 5-year setback, you know what I mean? In 2 years of chemo, 2 years of having these crazy seizures that would just debilitate me and tear me down. You're talking about a lot that I had to actually go through. So I'm not just speaking and saying, oh yeah, you know, I know, you know, a couple of weeks.
It was so tough and I got over it.
I got over it. No, it wasn't. This was
I appreciate you painting the picture.
This years of suffering. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, the resilience and the spirituality that I got, and the faith in God, and how I know how, you know, if it wasn't for him delivering me and being there and showing me a lot of things, and continually showing me in this growth, you know, there's a reason why I'm still here. And I really feel like a lot of this is, you know, it's really tapping into that spirituality. I think as all entrepreneurs, we really need to tap into that spiritual side. There's one thing that I learned. There's two sides of you. There's the flesh side and the spirit side. And unfortunately, 8 hours a day, we're always feeding that flesh side. I mean, marketing, media, TV, food, whatever, you know, arguments we're having, but whatever it is, we're always feeding that flesh side gets fed, man, fed, but that spiritual side gets deprived. On Sunday, you may give God or whomever, you may give, you know, God the glory for 2 or 3 hours, or, you know, during Sundays. But after that, that's about it. But that's not enough to sustain you as an entrepreneur and to go through these hardships that you will go through, that we'll all encounter. It's not enough to sustain you. You really got to feed that spiritual side of who you are to be able to help you out when you face a time like I face. You're going to need that help. And that help always doesn't come from family and friends and just prayer alone. It's going to come from something much deeper. And I just encourage people to cultivate that spiritual side and put down Facebook for a minute, turn the TV off, you know, unplug, and really get to know who you are and get to know that spiritual side, because that side of you is going to help you take you to the next level, the levels that you really want to go. Sometimes you have to understand that you're not blessed and your business is not blessed to go where it needs to go because you're not ready. It'd be like handing the keys to a car to a 9-year-old. They're not ready to drive. Can they drive? Is the car there? Are all the things available for this individual to do whatever it is they need to do? Absolutely. But they're physically and mentally not ready to take those keys. And sometimes you may want your business to get 800 doors, but you're not mentally ready to handle 800 doors. And sometimes, you know, God knows that, and he won't allow you to grow into those 800 doors, because then it becomes like if you were to hand the keys to a car to a 9-year-old, then it becomes a disaster. It can become a wrecking ball for whoever's on that road, or for the child themselves, or for, you know, pedestrians, whomever. It can become a mess real fast. So sometimes if you're not growing and your business is slow, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're not really turning to the inside and speeding that spiritual side, and you're not growing as an individual. As soon as you start focusing on growing as an individual, watch what happens to your business. I promise you, your business begins to take off, and opportunities begin to present themselves when you're ready for those opportunities. And it's already means, you know, like I said, both the physical and the spiritual side.
Yeah, every time. I've said this, you know, to several clients, and many times, that your business isn't struggling or has a lack of growth because you aren't spending enough time focusing on your business.
Right.
That's not the problem. That's entrepreneurs spend plenty of time focusing on the business, sometimes too much time focusing on their business. And they become ineffective. They're spending so much time on their business. Yeah. I mean, I got to the point once where I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't spending time with my family. I was just working and working because I thought that's what I needed to do to get ahead. And it was less effective than I mean, I was probably at 10% my capacity as to what I'm doing now. And I spend way less time focused on the business. Yeah. Focusing on family, spending time with my kids, spending time with my wife, doing date nights, doing personal training and getting fit and like eating healthy and like, but the spiritual side, you're absolutely correct. When you get connected, and some people call it getting centered or getting spiritually connected or connected with God, when you get clarity on your purpose in life and on what your mission is. And I think that's different for every single person, because in our heart, there is a different joy for every single person.
Absolutely.
And some people say, follow your bliss, but if we all have different things that just light us on fire and make us feel alive. And those things always involve an outward focus. Yep. They always involve other people. They always, in business, that means having a client-centric business.
Yeah,
instead of a self-centric business. Absolutely. Right? And we need purpose. Even the millennials nowadays, people complain about millennials, but they just want purpose. They don't want to do meaningless work anymore. Right. And entrepreneurs, we, especially contribution-focused, visionary entrepreneurs, we want to have a life of purpose and of meaning. And if you can give that to yourself and give that to, that voice deep down inside that's telling you what you need to do and what you should be doing. And if you follow that, your business will grow and things will expand. It just happens.
It just happens. Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's not something that you can just force. It's not something you can go just read a book and you're like, oh, I'm going to change you just need to get clear on what makes you feel alive and do more of that. And you got to give yourself some time for that. There has to be space for that.
Absolutely.
We don't even allow our brain space a lot of times. And so some people, if it's meditating, it's being quiet, it's having those mornings or evening hours alone, whatever it might be. But make sure you're investing in yourself. And so I love this. I love the direction this conversation went, Bryan. It's been fantastic having you on the show.
Good.
We'll let you get back to your sunny Florida and get out there to those French fries that you're excited about.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Good to be with you.
All right. We'll be talking with you soon.
All right.
Bye,
guys.
Bryan.
Take care.